Hello everyone, welcome to Roy Digital Children Teaching Center, and few days ago I have completed the first part of this chapter, right? And today I will complete the rest. So let's get started. And today's first topic is what is colonial. Now let's talk about a very important concept, colonialism. Colonialism means when one country takes control over another country's economy, society and politics. The British conquered India and took our resources and changed our economy to benefit themselves, and this is why the period of British rule is called colonial India. Before British rule, India was a rich country with a flourishing trade system, but the British changed Indian industries and forced Indians to buy British goods. And in this book, we will read about the way the British came to conquer the country and establish their rule, subjugating local Nawabs and Rajas. You will see how they establish control over the economy and society, collected revenue to meet all their expenses, bought the goods they wanted at low price, produced crops they needed for export, and will understand the changes that came about as a consequence. You will also come to know about the changes British rule brought about the values and taste, customs and practices. When the subjugation of one country by another leads to these kinds of political, economic and cultural changes, we refer to the process as colonization. You will, however, find that all classes and groups did not experience these changes in the same way, and that is why the book is called Our Past in the plural. And our next topic is how do we know? Historians don't have time machines, right? So how do they find out about the past? Actually, historians use various sources such as official records, surveys, census, diaries, letters and newspapers and books. But remember, official records only show what a British wanted to record, and they do not always tell the full story. So, what sources do historians use in writing about the last 250 years of Indian history? No, first topic is administration produces records. One important source of the official records of the British administration. The British believed that the act of writing was important. Every instructions, plans, policy decision, agreement, investigation have to be clearly written up. Once this was done, things could be properly studied and debated. This conviction produced an administrative culture of memos, noting, and reports. The British also felt all important documents and letters needed to be carefully preserved. So they set up records rooms attached to all administrative institutions: the village Tahsildar's office, the collectorate, the commissioner's office, the provincial secretariats, the law courts all had their record rooms. Specialized institutions like archives and museums were also established to preserve important records. Letters and memos that moved from one branch of the administration to another in the early years of the 19th century can still be read in the archives. You can also study the notes and reports that district officials prepared, or the instructions and directives that were sent by officials at the top of the provincial administrators. In the early years of the 19th century, these documents were carefully copied out and beautifully written by the calligraphists, that is, by those who specialized in the art of beautiful writing. By the middle of the 19th century, with the spread of printing, multiple copies of these records were printed as proceedings of each government department. And here you can see the National Archives of India up in the 19 1920s. So, when New Delhi was built, the National Museum and the National Archives were both located close to the viceregal places. Viceregal related to Viceroy. And this location reflects the importance these institutions had in British imaginations. And the next topic is surveys become important. Okay. So, the British conduct surveys to collect information about India, and these surveys included revenue surveys to decide how much tax farmers should pay, census to count population every 10 years, land surveys to measure lands and forests. While these surveys were useful, they were often biased because they were conducted for British benefit. Okay, so the practice of surveying also became common under the colonial administration. The British believed that a country had to be properly known before it could be effectively administered. By the early 19th century, detailed surveys were being carried out to map the entire country. In the villages, revenue surveys were conducted. The effort was to know the topography, the soil quality, the flora, the fauna, the local histories, and the cropping pattern. All the facts seen as necessary to know about the administers the region. From the end of the 19th century, census operations were held every 10 years. These prepared detailed records of the number of people in all provinces of India, noting information on caste, religions, and occupation. There were many other surveys like botanical surveys, geological surveys, archaeological surveys, anthropological surveys, and forest surveys. Botanical gardens and natural history museums established by the British collected plant specimens and information about their uses. Local artists were asked to draw pictures of these specimens. Historians are now looking at the way such information was gathered and what this information reveals about the nature of colonialism. Okay, what officials record do not tell. Now here something important. Official records do not tell the history of common people. Government records mostly talk about laws, policies and taxes. But what about the struggles of farmers, workers, women and tribal communities? To know about them, historians study folk tales and songs, diaries, newspapers and old photographs. A British official might record a law of farmers, but a farmer's personal diary might reveal how unfair that law was, right? So, let's discuss the topic what official records do not tell. From this vast corpus of records, we can get to know a lot, but we must remember that these are official records. They tell us what officials thought and what they were interested in and what they wish to preserve for posterity. Posterity refers to the future and the people will live then. Okay, and these records do not always help us understand what other people in the country felt and what lay behind their actions. For that, we need to look elsewhere. When we begin to search for these other sources, we find them in plenty, though they are more difficult to get than official records. We have diaries of peoples, account of pilgrims and travelers, autobiographies of important personalities, and popular booklets that were sold in the local bazaar. As printing spread, newspapers were published and issues were debated in public. Leaders and reformers wrote to spread their ideas. Poets and novelists wrote to express their feelings, and all these sources, however, were produced by those who were literate. From these, we will not be able to understand how history was experienced and lived by the tribals and the peasants and the workers who works in the mine or the poor on the streets. So getting to know their lives is a more difficult task, yet this can be done if we make a little bit of effort. When you read this book, we'll see how this can be done. Okay, so what did we learn today? Colonialism changed India's economy and society. Historians use multiple sources to learn about the past, and official records are useful, but they don't tell the full story. So that's all for today. If you found this lesson helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to Roy Digital Children Teaching Center. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for update on our next video. So see you soon with another exciting lesson. Until then, keep learning and keep exploring the history.